Thank you for joining us at JAF on Tech, your source for resources on enterprise security, InfoSec playbooks, workbooks, and so much more. Consider liking and subscribing. It is a free click for you, but helps us out immensely. Now onto the subject, the invisible listener, the hidden spies on your network. In today's digital landscape, one of the more subtle yet concerning scenarios involves an unauthorized entity gaining access to a network merely to monitor traffic passively. This type of intrusion is known as the invisible listener. Unlike more aggressive forms of attacks, the invisible listener does not alter or steal data directly. Instead, it simply observes the flow of information. The goal here might be to gather intelligence for future attacks or to understand the network topology better. It is sometimes described like a telephone tap, but in the case of invisible listeners, they could be much more nefarious. While this activity generally remains non-disruptive, it signals a potential vulnerability in the network that could be exploited later. Sensors and security systems can detect such activity by monitoring for unusual read-only access patterns across the network. The alert level remains relatively low as long as there is no active engagement, such as data manipulation or command execution. However, the presence of an invisible listener should prompt a thorough review of access controls and network segmentation to prevent any escalation into more serious forms of intrusion. Spying on what web pages are visited are one thing. Vacuuming up usernames and passwords are another. This type of cyber espionage is commonly attributed to state-sponsored groups. This is due to cyber espionage and cyber warfare becoming increasingly common, and listeners may come from countries like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. Their targets often include government entities, defense contractors, and critical infrastructure sectors across the globe in places like the United States, Romania, Poland, Jordan, Ukraine, and Turkey. Groups and tools who use listeners. The Russian military GRU, the main directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation, GRU, is known for its global cyber operations targeting political, military, and economic entities. The Internet Research Agency, IRA. This is a Russian company engaged in online influence operations, often associated with spreading disinformation and propaganda, particularly during election campaigns. Using listeners is one of the first steps in targeting vulnerable users and vulnerable networks. MITRE classification number G0007. Within the MITRE attack framework, G0007 refers to APT, or Advanced Persistent Threat, number 28, codenamed Fancy Bear. This is a prominent Russian cyber espionage group, notorious for its sophisticated attacks on governmental, military, security, and media sectors. Fancy Bear is associated with the GRU and is known for sophisticated attacks on political and military targets, particularly in Europe and North America. Their methods often include spear phishing and exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities. This is how they gain footholds into networks for additional surveillance. The Equation Group, which is believed to be linked to the NSA, is associated with complex cyber espionage operations. Their techniques and tools are sometimes found in contexts similar to those used by the GRU. Other aliases and subgroups related to Russian state-sponsored cyber operations include Voodoo Bear, Quidaj, Tonto Team, Sophacy, Sednet, Tsar Team, Strontium, and Sandworm. These groups share tools, infrastructure, and objectives aligned with Russian state interests. Tools and techniques. Fancy Bear employs a range of techniques in its attack chain, including listeners and spear phishing, where they use emails with malicious attachments or links to gain initial access. They also exploit zero-day vulnerabilities, taking advantage of unknown flaws to infiltrate systems before patches are available. To maintain persistence and harvest credentials, they utilize tools like Xagent, Xtunnel, and Zabrosi, allowing them to collect sensitive information and keep access to compromised systems. Sandworm is a notorious tool that operates in the wild by silently listening to map networks. Its arsenal includes Black Energy, which was used for cyber espionage and destructive attacks, notably in the Ukrainian power grid attacks of 2015 and 2016. Additionally, Sandworm deployed NotPetya, a piece of destructive malware disguised as ransomware, which caused significant global damage in 2017. These tools highlight the group's capability for both intelligence gathering and executing highly disruptive operations after networks and users have been mapped. Strontium, also utilized by the GRU, employs advanced techniques for lateral movement within networks. It uses tools like mimicots for credential dumping and SecSec for moving laterally across compromised systems. To exfiltrate sensitive data, Strontium deploys custom malware designed to extract valuable information from infiltrated networks. This combination of lateral movement and data exfiltration underscores the group's sophisticated approach to cyber espionage. Historical and newsworthy incidents. During the 2016 U.S. presidential election, APT-28 Fancy Bear played a significant role in the cyber attacks on the Democratic National Committee, DNC, and subsequent information leaks aimed at influencing the election. Again, in the 2015 and 2016 Ukrainian power grid attacks, the Sandworm Group used black energy malware to disrupt the power supply in Ukraine, demonstrating their capability to target critical infrastructure. The NotPetya attack in 2017 initially targeted Ukrainian organizations, but quickly spread globally, causing billions of dollars in damages and showcasing the destructive capabilities of Russian cyber operations. These attacks, which were possible because of extensive surveillance and espionage performed over long periods of time, cannot be overstated. They not only caused monetary damages, but led to real-life human turmoil due to the targets of the attacks. To effectively deal with invisible listeners, start by detecting and confirming their presence. Use a combination of network traffic analysis tools, endpoint security solutions, and advanced threat intelligence feeds to identify unusual patterns that indicate an intruder. Once confirmed, take immediate action to isolate the compromised entity, either by disabling accounts or blocking IP addresses, to prevent further unauthorized access. Following isolation, conduct a comprehensive review of security measures. This should include an assessment of access controls, network segmentation, and software updates. Implement any necessary enhancements to fortify your defenses against future intrusions. Finally, initiate a thorough incident response. Investigate the incident meticulously, document all findings, and report to relevant stakeholders while maintaining a detailed record for future reference. Post-mortem, ensure continuous monitoring, develop robust incident response plans, stay compliant with legal requirements, and foster a culture of security awareness within the organization. These can be broken down into individual steps presented in the Invisible Listener playbook and material, and these steps feed into mature incident response and reporting. Document findings, report to relevant stakeholders, maintain incident documentation and lessons learned. First, detect and confirm the intrusion. This starts with identifying unusual read-only access patterns. Then verify the presence of the invisible listener. Second, isolate the intruder, isolate the entity, then disable compromised accounts or IP addresses. Third, review and enhance tactical security posture. Review access controls and permissions. Implement or improve network segmentation. Keep software and firmware up to date. Change passwords and credentials. Educate employees, plan and conduct regular security audits. And of course, ongoing security. Implement continuous monitoring and threat intelligence. Update the incident response plan with lessons learned. Comply with legal and regulatory requirements. Collaborate with cybersecurity experts if needed. Maintain a culture of security awareness. Regularly update security policies and controls. This should provide an enterprise security team with tools and goals to tackle sensitive and thorny issues like spies, listeners, the implications, and practical steps. Again, please see the playbook for a documented step-by-step guide. Before we leave, please consider liking and subscribing. And thank you for listening to this discussion on Invisible Listeners.